dublab.
Welcome to the Quarantine Tapes, a daily podcast from Onassis, LA and dublab. Hosted by Paul Holdengräber, this series chronicles shifting paradigms in the era of social distancing.
Hello.
Hello, is this Julie Mehretu?
Yes, speaking.
Hello, Julie. This is Paul Holdengräber calling you. I'm so happy to have you on the call, and I'm so happy you agreed to be part of the Quarantine Tapes. How are you tonight?
It's a pleasure. Good, thank you. Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm alive. It's such a strange. I mean, even that question feels different now than ever. How are you at this moment? Just feels. It's hard to. I mean, one can answer it very politely, but in many ways, how we are is so dependent on how everyone else is more than ever.
It is true. It is true. It is true. I feel really thankful to be here and thankful to be talking to you, and really thankful to be alive.
Me too.
So I'm in it. I feel good about that. And
yeah, a lot of gratitude.
Yes, without a doubt, and I feel like I'm in a place. There's this kind of there's a certain kind of anxiety and urgency to this moment, and there's also an immense amount of stillness to this time. And I feel like I'm trying to be right there, right? Be as present as I can be to it. But
I want to talk to you about that. It's so beautiful. The mixture of urgency and, how did you say, presentness, and stillness, urgency, and talk to me, perhaps more even than the urgency, which I think we all feel, the stillness, what that means for you, that word. I feel like in many ways it encapsulates your artistic practice as well.
Well, I think there's an immense, as you said, we all feel the urgency in a way. And I think in a sense that urgency heightens an existing urgency from before the COVID crisis in a way. And when it's laying bare so much of the inequities and problems and kind of complicated difficulties of our reality. And in a sense, it's really laying that bare. But in the midst of that, and in order to negotiate that, this crisis is somehow insisting on a certain kind of stillness in time, and almost like a slowing down of time. But even though time doesn't feel that slow, it also feels like it's moving very rapidly. But at the same time, within that, there's this slowness and movement, and this inability to really move and spatially. And I think that changes how one navigates space and time. And so that's the stillness I'm thinking about. And in that, even though and I know in the big picture of things, it's a short amount of time. But if you're usually moving a lot and traveling a lot, and as I usually do, and kind of moving through the world and engaging with people a lot, and kind of that, then it's a really different experience. And I feel like a time where I'm with my family, and they're the ones that I see on a daily basis, and it's just us in the countryside, and the time has kind of paused in a way, or every other aspect of the way that I engage with time has paused.
Where do I find
in more of an exchange way?
Where do I find you actually? And added to the question of the location, I want to also ask you: did you paint today?
I did paint today. I paint almost every day here. And as much as I want to do that in my daily life when I'm in New York, or when the last year I've been traveling and more than usual, or installing these shows. So the painting practice has been more interrupted, but here I've been able to paint every day. And if I don't paint, it's an intentional decision not to take the day off. And so I did paint today. And but I'm in I'm in Sullivan County in upstate New York in the Catskills, about an hour and a half from the city. And I'm at a place called Denison Hill, which is an artist residency that I founded with two friends over 12, 15 years ago. Over 15 years ago, actually. And it's been a place where many artists come through the years and been in residence here, and the season was just about to start. And so there's a house and a garden and a big property around here. There's a big studio in the barn, and there's several studios here in the house. And so it's a kind of a sprawling house with a lot of space for this endeavor of like working and making and being in this environment, which is the Catskills in New York. It's beautiful. It's magnificent. I feel we're really lucky to be able to have this place as a refuge and a retreat at this moment.
And it's empty now. There are no other artists, so they are.
No, there are no other artists here at the moment. I mean, one of my assistants, my studio manager and assistant from the city, helped pack up our studio. He has a place that he and his partner and son bought very close, about 20 minutes from here, and they were working on that before the crisis and before this moment. And so he was going to actually stay here during their renovation while he was working on his place on the weekends. And then when this started to happen, just before the city shut down, and when my kids' school closed, we packed up the work in the studio and brought it here. And so he's been a part of my environment here as well. And then the woman who takes care of the property here, her name is Rachel. We've been hanging out with her too. She's here, and she manages the house and the property while we're all not here. The artist residence.
I was so intrigued, Julie, to find out, and in a way it makes sense, insofar that our past makes sense, that your father was a geographer.
Yes.
Which I think is fascinating. I've always been surprised, though not totally surprised, given the nature of this country at this moment, how little in the United States people study geography. Actually, it's often said that Americans learn about geography by going to war. And I'm curious what effect that may have had on you, since maps are so deeply important to you.
There are several aspects of who he was, who he is, and who he has been, and he's a geographer. And in that, it was a way of thinking about space and time and politics and land. Right. And agriculture that informed and in that the economy and development, and all of that it informed his desire of contributing to this new form of the African revolution, if you want, or the African decolonial moment that he was a part of. And so that's what informed me in the sense. It wasn't a massive visual kind of information, but it was this understanding of place and space. And we traveled a lot with him, but also the conversations around the dinner table and the conversations that took place in our family were really around this sense of his negotiation in the world. Then my mother. My mother is a teacher, a Montessorian, but they were both of this moment that was inventing a different world and was an active part of, while this world was emerging, active participants in what that could be in the 60s and the 70s.
You know, geography was something...
And especially on the African continent, it was essential.
Was this in Ethiopia?
Yes, it was in Ethiopia.
You know, when I was a younger man, I prefer saying younger than young, a younger man, in school we studied geography. We actually had two disciplines, géographie et géographie humaine. Where you isn't it funny? You learned about the influence of human beings on space and on land, and I think it's been very interesting to me to see just the extent to which maps now, during this time of the pandemic, have really, as it were, made a comeback.
Yeah, and also that this that there's this really, like you spoke about Americans and their understanding of geography and how little it's taught and how little that, like, I think there's a crazy statistic, and I don't remember it exactly, about how many Americans can place the United States outside of North America on a globe, on a map, that they can't, or what countries are near them, they can't really locate that. So that the global perspective of who they are and where they are is unknown. And I think that what you're talking about in terms of this understanding of then your being as a human being in space and on the globe as a part of the earth, as a part of the planet, is really something that is essential to understanding how we shift and participate in geography and in space. And I think that's something that this crisis is kind of highlighting and in kind of showing in a really stark way, is bringing that to light.
You know, I want to shift the conversation slightly, but only slightly, towards abstraction. And by way of celebrating today Turner's birthday, he was born on this day in 1775, and he said, "Indistinctiveness is my forte." And there's a wonderful passage that I think you know well, where he says, the seascape was his point of reference, and even when he was trying to paint historical scenes around that, it was the sky and the atmosphere that he was painting, something you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to know more about your interest in probably late Turner, and also how it might veer towards your embracing abstraction.
Well, Turner is a favorite of mine, and it's that really that sublime space that he would try to, in a sense, find in paint and in material form, try to find some form to depict this kind of this thing that's undepictable, that's undescribable, that's ungraspable in a way, and it's about trying to find that other space. And I think that for me, abstraction is all, like, what my attraction or gravity towards abstraction has been, that it is this place of opacity, that it is this place of possibility where language can be invented and where a different form of imagination can exist. And one of the reasons for that is that I really resisted and it's not a criticism of representational work, because I think there's incredibly important representational work, Turner being one of those artists in a way. But I think that for me, that when a particular image carries a particular narrative or carries a particular description, there's this desire of describing itself, or there's this desire of having the language to make sense of something that becomes so concrete. And what I'm interested in, and what I'm trying to invent and make sense of, is something that is not necessarily, the language doesn't necessarily exist for that, but that also there's this space of a different form of freedom and possibility, and that's really crucial in abstraction. That there's an immense rich space for that in a way that doesn't exist when you're dealing with images that you can kind of put language to and define in a particular way.
Do you have a favorite Turner?
Well, I think, the slave ship is one of my favorites. I mean, I feel like that painting is one I go to over and over and over again. And there's several that I'm thinking of right now that I can't think of their titles, but they're
you see them
in London. Yes, I see them, and they're the light.
I see them. I see them with you. Maybe we're seeing the same thing, but we just don't know what they're called.
They're the light over there's sunrise over the Thames, and there's or sunset, and then, but really the painting of the slave ship, that I'm not sure of the title exactly, but that painting is such an amazing painting to me, because it's this immense scape of the complete terror and the sublime, but there's this effort of trying to depict that at the same time, and what is completely undescribable that is trying to be materialized in paint in a way, and the light and the color of that, and how the water and the light and the bodies and the light of the sky kind of merge into one another is incredible.
I mean, it gives me, you know, what Nabokov spoke about when he spoke about what literature should do. But looking at Turner paintings really does that. It gives me a tingle in my spine. And sometimes, you know, those tiny little sketches like a ship or a boat in a storm. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, what makes it so perfect for me is there's really nothing to add, and yet it's a sketch.
And the materiality of life. Really trying to paint that.
Also,
it's the substance that is so fundamentally material and clumsy. Paint is a substance that, while it's liquid and slippery, and there's something seductive about that, when you put it down, it is a very physical material that is substantial in a way. And to be able to try and invent something like that and convey that from paint, that's an incredible effort.
That's one of
the things I love about painting.
What you love about painting? What were you going to say? I feel like I interrupted you.
No, it's one of the things that I love about painting.
Yeah.
That from that materiality, something else can exist.
A space also for dreaming.
I'm sorry, I'm losing you in this connection.
Are you
losing?
Hear me? I can hear you very clearly. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. Now I can, yes.
Yeah, I just said a space for dreaming. I loved that quotation that you so much love of Chinua Achebe, where he says that the role of the writer is to create the headache, which immediately, because I'm a quotomaniac by profession, made me think of the wonderful and very famous line of Kafka, where he says, "I think we ought to read the kind of books that wound or stab us. A book must be an axe for the frozen sea within us." And I'm wondering if you can unpack why the role of the writer is to create the headache resonates so much with you.
Well, I think there's this expectation sometimes that work will, or art, or writing, or that art as a form can be something that can be prescriptive, that can be something that can be determinative, or something that can explain something. And I think what's most interesting is these explorations where the work actually evolves into something else, where it becomes a different form of challenge, where it's a thorn in the side as well. It's as much of a difficult. It doesn't necessarily illuminate anything more. It doesn't necessarily, but it can be moving and as you said, create that tingle in your spine. But it can shift who you are. It can fundamentally change you on a physical way, in a visceral way, and that can be a permanent shift in who you are as a person. And that can happen through a work that can be. It is not at all illuminating towards anything, but that shifts and changes you, and that to me is something else. That can be something that can be that can be complicated. In this moment, I don't think anyone can tell you, or with any certainty, what is happening, what's going on, how this time is really affecting anyone, because it hasn't even been metabolized.
Right. And yesterday I had occasion to speak with William Gibson, who coined the term cyberspace. And he just wakes up in the morning, Julie, and just doesn't know what the day will bring about. And this is a man who, wrote among the most extraordinary books, science fiction books, and writing science fiction for him now is very difficult.
We're living in it. Yeah, it's a mess.
I love the fact that made you laugh. But tell me what you're reading. I love the fact that you're laughing with this wonderful laugh. I adore it. Tell me what you're reading.
Well, I'm reading Moby Dick, which is one, and then also Wayward Lives by Sadia Hartman. But Moby Dick is, I have this habit of listening to old books that I never read that I should have read because I have insomnia when I can't sleep or to go to sleep.
Oh, you too.
Because sometimes I have it. Yeah.
Well, isn't it lovely? It's lovely to keep the night company, isn't it?
Yeah, and each book, whichever book it is, it becomes, and I love to choose really long books, and it becomes, and this book is especially like to be lost in Moby Dick at night and look forward to even if I wake up, I mean, the thing is, usually I would wake up in the middle of the night and be up for a few hours, and right now I'm not. I like put the sleep timer on in case I fall asleep so that I don't get too far ahead, and it's such a great book to actually re-listen to. So if you do fall asleep, you can re-listen to it. But every time I listen to a chapter in a different way, and it's one of the books I've listened to, in which is the case of most of them usually, that I want to actually then pick it up and mark sections in the book and reread it. But it's an incredible book to be lost in during this moment. And I can't, I mean, that book is also part of what I'm lost in the studio too. And I think it's this complete confrontation with this existential kind of moment and not just moment, but reality and the unknown. And we have as I'm right here in the United States, in this country, it's an intense thing to be in at this moment. And it's been so revealing, and I feel like I don't know how that lined up to this time because I started it before.
Books find us.
I'm sorry?
Books find us.
Books find us, exactly. I mean, and to be lost in this, where Ahab being this Trumpian autocrat, we're on this boat, and we don't
know what will happen to this boat.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the thing we really don't, and it's really frustrating because we're stuck in this moment where it feels like it will be extended and an extended form of pain and hardship. And in another way, I think this can only allow for something else to happen, for something else to occur in this time, because so much is being destroyed and so much is being taken apart that there has to be space for the invention of something else, and a different set of decisions can be made. But who knows?
Who knows?
Depends.
Who knows? It depends on what will take its place. And when I said, books find us, it reminds me of something that you've said, where you said all art chooses its audience.
It does, yeah.
How did you mean that? And how do you understand it now?
Okay, well, I think that in terms of when you go, like, painting is a time-based medium. It's a slow medium. You need to experience painting is something to be in front of the painting, and then to really spend time with the painting, and the painting reveals itself. And some paintings will do that. Some paintings you can stand in front of. You can stand in front of Rembrandt's Jewish Bride and feel the hand on her chest, and feel the tenderness and the passion in the eyes, and you can feel that. Or in front of the Night Watchman, I'm thinking of Rembrandt, I'm thinking of that painting. You can actually see space occur and watch shadows create deeper space, and almost as if a hand gesture shifts. That can happen through that time-based experience in front of the painting. And I think that, but that chooses, you have to really engage with the painting, get pulled in and attracted and lost in it for that to happen. I think that, and there are times in a life where different work moves you in a different way. And at another time you'll see that same work and it doesn't have the same connection with you. And I know that I've tried to read Moby Dick many times earlier in my life, and I haven't been able to. And again, I keep thinking, what a book to be lost in right now. It's the book where everything is confounded, where nothing makes sense, and everything is inquisitive, questioning of everything else at the same time. And I'm completely enthralled and fascinated by it. I'm moved by it. The poetry of it, and the ecological kind of description, the anthropological, the philosophical, the theological, like, it's all enmeshed in that book. And it's this immense kind of, and the amount of space and time travel that happens in that book. amount of space and cultural and time travel that happens in the ocean. There's this moment right now where that is only occurring through these ways, like we're talking on the phone, which I'm doing a lot more these days, or connecting through the internet. Listening to talks by people.
Yeah, and the phone, which is a medium I actually have always enjoyed, but has became exotic. I mean, I remember so clearly my mother saying, "But enough already. You saw your friend 3 minutes ago in school. Do you need to speak to him or her for the next 10 minutes on the phone?"
Oh my God, I remember that.
You remember that? I mean, we're old enough to remember that, but the phone for the last 15 years or so has become tremendously exotic, but now it's become a need, because we have a need to connect and to hear what Roland Barthes spoke about when he spoke about the grain of the voice, le grain de la voix. It's very important to go back
Absolutely.
to the intonation, to hear Julie's laughter. I mean, that's great. There you have it. I wouldn't get it if I was sending you a text. You were asked just about a year ago to name 3 great influences, and you said music, revolution, and failure. Would they be that now? I think failure is so interesting also in the context of what you're reading at this moment, but I'd be curious for you to say something about those 3 influences.
Yeah, I mean, to speak about failure as an influence, it's one, because that's how you find a space in creation and trying and negotiating, but also failures of the effort, on a much larger scale and in every way possible. Like it goes back to my source, even as in my family, the effort of trying to contribute to make a difference in Ethiopia. It totally consumed itself in essence, and the revolution broke to the point where we had to leave. And many lives were broken by that. Many lives in my family, many people who didn't see each other for decades, where new lives had to be restarted in different places, in different faraway places, and some people never saw each other again. And so you had and then the fundamental kind of breakdown of the country and what happened. And some will think of some aspects of that revolution as successful, and many others will think of those as other failures. And some ways that the new government tried to rebuild the country, some parts of those are considered. But there's this cycle of effort and invention within the failure, and within those gaps and those spaces, within those breaks. To me, that's like this incredible place of possibility, and a place that I mine in a way to make and think through what else can happen. And a lot of that is also because of the failures what we have been and what we have done, and the atrocities that we have become who we are as a collective country now, on the history of like the atrocities of slavery and genocide, and however you want to think about it, these immense failures to a particular way of being. And I think but within that space, it's not. I don't think nihilistically or pessimistically in that space. I think that I'm amazed what is, no matter how much people are denied their capability of being, there's this kind of insistence on becoming and inventing anew and kind of finding another form of freedom and possibility in that. And so to me, that's a really important space.
Julie,
evolution, because it.
Julie, I can't thank you enough. We'll have to leave revolution and music for another conversation, and and American exceptionalism, and so many other things I wanted to talk to you about.
American exceptionalism has failed us right now, right?
I know. I know. So there you have it. We spoke about it. Julie, I can't thank you enough, and I hope we see each other before long for real. But for now, I give you a virtual hug. Thank you so much for taking the call, and we'll get to music, and we'll get to revolution, and we'll get to many other good things, including slowness, which I want to talk to you about much more. Thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Paul.
All the best. Bye-bye.
All the best to you. Bye-bye.
To support this show and Dublab's progressive programming, go to dublab.com/support.